we'll share it with more if needed. If you have any questions, just use that reactions button on the bottom of your toolbar and just raise your hand like this, and I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll see that more than you waving, because I'm going to be sharing my screen to go through Campaign Monitor. So Campaign Monitor uses the URL createsend.com, and each chapter has their own login information, and they can delegate to different people in their chapter who could be an editor. So that's my login page. And I go to the back end of Campaign Monitor. As the administrator of the program, I can see all of the chapter's accounts rather than just my own, which is what you would see logging into Saskatchewan. So if here on your left, you'll see these are all the clients that we have in this program, everything from CARP chapters to special programs and projects that we've worked on over the years. If I go down, I'll find and someone could let me know if is it still called Regina or is it CARP Saskatchewan now?
Well, that if it's still called Regina, it should be changed.
Well, it doesn't matter in the back end. It just when you log in, are you using CARP Regina? I think
none of us are logging in. Like, we're all newbies to this.
You've never sent out a newsletter yourselves?
I never have, no.
So every newsletter has been sent out from the national office on your behalf?
No. We lost our resident executive member who knew how to use it.
All right. Okay, better understood. So when someone logs in to your account, you will see something that looks more like this. You'll see your CARP Regina chapter account.
Anthony, can
Yes.
you change that to CARP Saskatchewan today?
No, thank you. That involves a lot of back-end work, and it will not be seen by anyone other than yourselves.
Okay.
So if we look at the home page, the editing place, I want to point out first that it's color coordinated. So green takes you to the next step all the time. And this program is very intuitive if you take the time to read what it says on the page. Oftentimes, people will just jump ahead and not read the instructions. This program is set out, if you just follow the instructions, it will work you through the process using the green steps for the next step. Right now, what we see here there are 3 drafts in progress, and they range from a recent one for the Coffee with CARP in May, a test that was made in January, and then we go all the way back to 2018, 2 drafts. So I'm going to show you, see all drafts in all draft campaigns, and this will show a number of drafts that have been created over the years but never sent. And that's where you would look for projects that have been started perhaps by someone else in your chapter where you could pick up and continue the work. So those are drafts. And then we can look at sent emails that have gone out. The last one that was sent by the chapter was December 11th, 2021. We get a quick insight into how many people received it, the percentage of how many people opened it, and the percentage of people that clicked on a link inside that newsletter. And one of the other very important strengths of Campaign Monitor is the reporting that you get on the newsletters. I've clicked on the link to look at the newsletter. And this is the details that come from it. I can press view campaign to actually see what the finished product looked like. And this is the newsletter that went out from your chapter. Merry Christmas, and an invitation to coffee with Carp. I'll close that again. And we can see a timeline of the people that received it. So on December 11th, it went out just before 9 a.m. There's the activity, and then slowly it creeps down over the next few days as people open their email and check it out. And then we see the engagement, which is how many people interacted with the newsletter. 2,649 were delivered, and 42.96% opened the email. That's the best estimate. Sometimes people will read it in their browser, their email itself, and not open it fully, and they can get the gist of the content, but 42% actually clicked it open. And another thing to point out is if as you scroll your mouse over these numbers, you can get further details. And as I click on the number of recipients here, it will show me a listing of everyone that opened up that newsletter. And this can be used by the chapter to understand an audience and maybe focus messages to that specific audience. So if the newsletter contained a story about your upcoming chapter golf tournament, for example, and 800 people clicked on that link to find out more about the golf tournament, you might know that those people were interested specifically in that type of event or project, and you might contact that group directly in the future regarding another similar event. You clicked on the link about the golf tournament, maybe you're interested in our bowling evening. So that just a type of way to understand who's opening your newsletter specifically and who's clicking on what. As we go through this, I'll just suggest you watch and take it in. And as you are given credentials to log in yourselves, go in and look around, clicking it. It's going to be difficult for you to take everything in now, obviously, but you won't break it by going in and looking at it and pressing and reading and examining all of the data that's here.
Anthony, I have a question. Do you want it
Yes.
now?
Sure.
Okay, you had said that the 42.96% would be someone that actually opened the email. And
Correct.
I'm thinking, do you mean what I'm looking at when I see an email, which is a listing in one column and what they call a pane beside it? And I can read what's in the pane without actually double clicking in the email list. Is that what you're talking about? Somebody that just reads the pane and doesn't double click on the list?
If they don't open the email itself, rather than just viewing it in the pane, then they don't register as part of this
Okay.
42%.
Wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. Thank you.
And the delivery summary, again, graphic, 2649 emails were delivered and 13 bounced back. That's meaning that 13 emails were either not receiving or unable to receive the message. 10 people unsubscribed from your list. They went through the process of, and let me view the campaign again. They went through the process of scrolling to the bottom and hitting the unsubscribe. I have to find where that is. Here it is down here in the bottom. They clicked unsubscribe to take their names off of future emails. And 0 people marked it as spam, and no one shared it that we can account for. And then we can look at what links were of most interest in the newsletter. The link in your newsletter to join the Zoom was clicked by 37 people. There's an option to view it in your browser rather than in the email. 14 people chose that option. 13 people hit the page to join or renew CARP. 2 hit the my.carp.ca page, and 2 inquired about member benefits. And then we can see that 900 were from Canada, 78 people opened it from the United States, 1 from Mexico. And that gives you a report on that. And again, if you click the full report to get more info, you can find out exactly who was where. And here's a map of where the emails were opened from. And if you wanted to find out which of your members who opened the email were in the United States, we could
How
click
about
on it.
Mexico?
Pardon me?
How about Mexico? There's
Well,
one.
There's one in Mexico. We can click on that. I think we can tell who's there. We're waiting for a report.
You're recording this. It's probably not a good idea.
All right.
'Cause that's personal information then.
Well, that's an important point that I'm making to make, Kathleen, that this is all personal information. Chapters have a responsibility, obviously, to be very cognizant of that. And our members have given us our email addresses so that we can communicate with them. They're interested in finding out the benefits of their membership, but this information is to be tightly secured and protected by the chapter as well. I'll go out of the world view, back to the snapshot. I think that's, once an email is sent and you check out this snapshot, you can also share the email that went out. So if someone's not on your list or you wanted to share your newsletter with another group of stakeholders, if you click Share Campaign, it creates a direct link to the newsletter. If I copy that, for example, put it into a new browser tab, I can share that newsletter and with anyone outside of our email. I can also share it directly on Twitter. It'll open up my Twitter account directly, or I can share it on Facebook as well, just by clicking those tabs. A very handy way to get the word out beyond your newsletter list, your email list. I'll go back to the overview again.
Anthony,
Yes.
is it all right for us to do that and share our newsletters every time we put out a newsletter, to put it on Facebook?
Yes, that would be a great practice to follow. Your chapter Facebook page likely has a few followers that aren't currently CARP members or on your email list. So getting that word to them, always a good idea. But I think more importantly, that more important than Facebook would be sharing it with other stakeholder groups who may be interested in what's in there, and share it with their members as well. If there's a topic of importance or something that's of interest in that newsletter that has all the information for logging in or the like, that could be a great way to share that detail with them in this newsletter format. So that's the background on the information you see after you send the newsletter, but let's look at creating a newsletter itself. The Campaign Monitor calls each newsletter a campaign. So if I click on campaigns, it'll show the current and past, and the green button over here will ask me to create a new campaign. I'll give it a name. And again, text like this at the bottom, this name will appear in your archive reports and analytic tools. So this tells you what you're doing. And take note the first many times that you're using it exactly what each box is for. So this doesn't go anywhere other than the name that appears in your archive, your reports, and your analytical tools. So it's not the headline that's meant to attract the attention of your recipients. This is your internal name for your campaign. And again, follow the green buttons. When I'm done that, I hit continue. Now it's asking us for a couple of things with the green button. I'm going to add a subject. So the subject line is what I want to appear on the headline of the newsletter as it appears in the recipient's inbox. So I click on the button, add subject. It defaults to the template name, but I'm going to call this join our meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. An effective subject line will boost your open rates. So that's a tip for you. And then a preview text. Control the preview text that appears in most inboxes. So sometimes there will be a preview text that can be seen in programs like Gmail. Share your opinion with key issues. That's just something that was used previously. And again, follow the green boxes. I'll save that. So now we have a Saskatchewan Test newsletter. That's the campaign name. The subject is join our meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. And the preview text, share your opinions on key issues. And if I wanted to change those, I could edit here. And we're default from the CARP Saskatchewan chapter and the email address that it's coming from, sk@carp.ca. Again, we could edit who it's coming from. And then the last part is to decide who will receive this email. And following the green buttons, I select the recipients I want to send it to. And right now there are two lists that exist in your Campaign Monitor account right now. There's something called the CARP Office Master List, Chapter 59, that has 906 subscribers. I don't have any details on that right now. And then there's a Saskatchewan list that I believe has been curated by your previous editor because she's added it, called Update Before Sending. And that has 2,411 members. I guess this was previously just Regina, and this is now the entire province. What I would do,
we were told to send it to both.
Yeah. So what I would do in almost every instance is maximize the amount of emails I'm sending it to, unless it was a specific list, and we can talk about lists a little bit later. I would choose Saskatchewan and the CARP head office list. And when I've selected the lists to which I want to send, I'll hit save. Again, following the green boxes. So now between the 2,400 on this Saskatchewan list and the 906 on the head office list, there are 2,649 unique recipients. So to reiterate, we've titled our campaign for internal use. We've given the subject line, join our meeting, with a preview text, share your opinions. It's coming from CARP Saskatchewan with the correct email address, and it's going to 2,649. Next step, again, following the green, design the email.
Before we move on, Anthony?
Pardon me?
I just, who can update those lists, or are they updated on a regular basis?
Sorry, it's Doreen.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I said we'll talk about the lists shortly.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed that.
No worries. But I don't, that's a whole different section of the program, and I don't want to bounce out of there yet until you see this part. Design the email is the next green option. We can reuse a past email, we can use a template that exists, or we can import new HTML outlines or send a plain text email. The only option we ask the chapters to use is the template that was created for the chapter. And what I find the easiest thing to do is to reuse a past email, and I edit that template, or we can use a new template, and we choose from a number of master templates that are in existence. And we can see that this one here, in the second one, has the CARP Saskatchewan header rather than the CARP Regina header. And this is the, I can preview this for you. You can get a better look at it. This has the header that we want. And on the right-hand side, you see what it would look like on a mobile phone platform. So that's the two views. I'm going to select the CARP Saskatchewan template. And now this takes us into the editing portion of the newsletter. It's a what you see is what you get type of program. You don't have to know any HTML code or anything other than data entry. On the left-hand side is the edit box where you will be entering the information. And on the right-hand side, you will see the in real-time view of what you're adding and subtracting. But I'm not, there we go. So I've clicked on this box. Excuse me one second. My computer is not. What I'm expecting to see here is a number of arrows on the right-hand side of this template that allow me to edit. And I'm not sure why I'm not seeing that. If I edit, so let me go back to the templates, excuse me. For practice sake, I will click the CARP Regina. And this is what I was expecting to see in the Saskatchewan newsletter page, where in the top, on the right-hand side, I see the option to add new information. So I'll have to check out what is the issue with that Saskatchewan template. It looks like it may have been altered, but the template is intended to have add new buttons on the right-hand side. And when you click the drop down, it gives you the options of what there is to add. So at the top of this newsletter, there's an opportunity to add our affinity partner advertising. And then below that, you can add different editorial choices, an image with copy, copy only, an image only, or an affinity partner ad. And again, at the bottom, the opportunity to add the smaller ads for the chapter. So the first thing I want to do is add new image and copy, which is typical of our newsletter layout. And that creates the default where you change the information on the right using the editor on the left. So the event name here is a default. I will change it on the left-hand side to a header there. A subheader will be this text in red. And if I change that, let's make it February so it makes sense. And then the main title. And that's the headline of your news story. These can be left blank or added according to the needs of your editorial. For example, if I want to not have that date, I can delete that and it disappears. If I don't want to have the top underline announcement, I can delete that. And all we have is the one headline. And then the hero image is a image that goes along with your story. The hero image is optimized at this 728 by 390 pixels, but for the most part, any image that is in this general configuration will be resized. I would remove the current image using the sprockets. The sprockets are all of your edit. Any opportunity to edit requires one of the sprockets. I'm going to remove that image and choose my own image. Looking at my desktop, I'll see if I have something that could go there. Here's a cancer recovery project image that I had on my screen. And I click on it from my desktop and it places it right in there. And then below that, it has lorem ipsum as default text. And here I can and this can be as long as necessary, or you can link to another project or page if you have more information somewhere else. And then when I've entered my information, I hit save, changes at the bottom again, following that green option. And now I have saved the first story in my newsletter as a test, and I can meet the Sask Premier online. And here's the content. If I want to preview what that's going to look like in the newsletter, again, we're following the green buttons, preview, and this is what it will look like when someone opens it in their email. If I don't like what I see or I'm not finished, I'm just doing a preview, I go back to make more changes, and I'm back in the editor. All right, I wanted to stop sharing there for a second, and I couldn't see your faces very well when I was editing, so I will come back to you. Any first questions on that that process? Again, you can't break it by going in and trying it. All I'll ask is if you ever get to the moment where you have to pay for something, that's when you know you're just at the edge and it's time to go back without worrying about sending out a newsletter inadvertently. So as long as you don't go to the pay page, which I'll show you later on, you can still go in and practice. It'll all be in drafts until it's sent.
Anthony, it appeared that there was a limit to the amount of text that you can put in there. And then you said it didn't matter how much text you put in. Is there a limit?
There's no limit that I know of, but there's a limit to your audience's interest and patience. So I would plan it accordingly. If you're having 2 or 3 different stories in your newsletter and they're all hundreds of words, I think you'll lose interaction. So I would be cognizant of that. And if you want to look at other chapters, newsletters, Janine can send some, and I believe she has been sharing more of them in the past, but you can get a sense of the length. And I think the majority of the newsletters are in the mode of information and invitations. So it's reiterating the place, the time, the date, links, background information, but I don't think we want to have, or especially, reprinting newspaper articles or things like that that are different than an electronic newsletter.
Is there an option for putting the first, say, paragraph of an article, a lengthy article, and putting it in there? And you know how then you sometimes see ... and you click on here to see the rest of the article if you're interested?
There are that's a very definite option. And if you saw in the template, there was a read more button that was in red, and that was a link or an option to link somewhere else. Until we have the chapter pages set, and we've explained that they're delayed, that would be the perfect place to drive newsletter recipients back to your chapter web page where the full article can be. But I'm not sure if you're envisioning sending people to a Globe and Mail article or something like that. I don't know. Well, unless there may be reasons to do that, but in your own newsletter, you can contain links as well. Like, let me go back and just look at that for a moment. So I'll go back to the test newsletter, and I want to edit what I have here. So I click on the edit box, and I could just type in read more here. If I highlight that and use the editor, so there's bold and italics and format left and right, but I can insert a link, and then by adding that link, now I can save that, preview my newsletter. I can read more, click on that, and it takes me out of the newsletter back to carp.ca. So I think your intuition was right. You can give a preview and then link to if it's residing somewhere else. But our content that we're creating likely isn't residing somewhere else right now. It would be third-party content.
Is there any way to share a PDF?
There is a way to share a PDF. We'll continue with the editing. In the newsletter, I think 2, 3, 4 different stories is about the max. One seems quite short, so we're trying to have a couple of different news stories in your newsletters so that people are getting notional value from going through the process of linking and reading your stories. So I'm going to add a new image and copy story, and that opens up a new editing tab for a second story here. Edit the name, test 2, subheader, test 2, main header, test 2, image, remove the one that's currently there, add a new one. I will find another image on my desktop, the CARP annual general meeting image. Oops, that wasn't an image, that was not an image file. Go back, find something else. CARP logo, perhaps. Open that. Now we have our headings, our event name, and the image, and then our text here at the bottom. Inside the text editor, Kathleen specifically, if I wanted to add a PDF, I have to link to the PDF. And the necessity right now will be for you to send us the PDF so we can save it on the CARP website. So if I go to the CARP website and log in, I'm in the back end here of the CARP website now. But if I go to media and look at the library, there are a number of PDFs that we upload. So here's a CARP letter to Prime Minister Trudeau PDF. If I click on that, whenever we upload something to our website, it has a URL. So we would upload your PDF and send you the URL. So I'm copying the URL now. If I go back to my newsletter editor. I could say, click on this link to read the letter to the Prime Minister, save the changes. I'm going to preview the newsletter. And then if I go down to the second story and I've asked someone to click on that link, oh, I didn't do that. So here's the link now to be seen. I'll go back and make more changes to the second story, edit. I highlight where I want the link to be, insert a link, add the link, insert, and now that's a live link to that PDF. And I scroll down, I'll preview in the viewer, go to the second story, read our letter to the Prime Minister. Imagine that says that there, click here, click on that. And now you go to the letter to the Prime Minister that is sitting on the carp.ca website server. So that's the only way to upload PDFs. And once those chapter news pages are available, you'll have a way to link back to your chapter news as well.
If we're creating our text in a Word document, can we just copy and paste from our text document into the newsletter here for any of our text?
It's actually recommended to do that because I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to my draft. So I'll go back to my home page because I came out of there. Go back to our drafts. That's the SAS newsletter we're working on. I'll go back to the editing. And edit this one, continue editing test number 2. In this text, you'll see that all of this is not English and there's no spell check or any kind of opportunity for the computer to help you with spelling or any other punctuation errors. So it's great to do it in Word first. You see, here's a Word document here. The CARP London chapter has sent a note to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission. I can copy the text out of the Word document. Just copy that, go back to the editor here and paste that there. And now I'm guaranteed that at least my effort at checking my spelling and my punctuation in Word, that I can put it right into the newsletter here. You can see it on the right-hand side that it has been put in with a little bit more faith in the quality of the spell check.
Does it matter what the formatting is like in the Word document? If you've got something that's got bold, and you've got something that's underlined, and you've got something that's a bigger font.
Yeah, you'll have to do that specifically in the program here. It puts it in as plain text.
It makes it all the same.
Yep.
Okay.
So if I wanted to bold this, for example, to whom it may concern, highlight that, bold. It's going. I wanted to make it a larger text, highlight it, change the size, let's say to 16, and then you can see on the right-hand side how large it gets. So 16 doesn't do much. I'll make it. And that, save the changes, preview, and you can get a good look at what it would look like for your audience. Oh, that didn't. Oh, there it is. There's the updated version. To whom it may concern has been bolded.
So
Go back to the editor and I will continue to edit this story. If you are versed in HTML programming and you click on the source button, that now takes you to the back end of what the computer is doing and talking to itself. And you can edit in HTML code if you prefer, but that's just a matter of typing the source. And you can edit in there if you're so inclined. You can insert, again, a link, which I think is the only one that we use on any real timing. You can make bulleted lists. You can make numbered lists. You can change the sizes. You can change the color of the text. So for example, I may want to make to whom it may concern, highlight, stand out in red, and that changes the text to red. Align it right, align it center, align it back to left, or I can italicize. The font and format are set by the template, so you're not changing the font. And I save those changes, and that's the basic content of a news story. And I can go to preview. Any questions on that? And again, it is a matter of getting your hands on it and practicing. And you can make drafts as many times as you like to practice. You can each take turns working on the same newsletter by logging in. If someone is responsible for the text, they can add the text. If someone's sourcing an image, they can add the image. If someone's responsible for hitting send, they can do that as well. If once you all have access to using it.
You do not have
Anthony,
to resize any, sorry, you don't have to resize any documents that you're going to put in there, any images?
The header image, as I mentioned, it has a preferred pixel. It was 7 something by 3 something. But if it's in the right, I guess, landscape rectangular shape, it will size it down. If it's too small, you will notice that it doesn't fill up the entire width of the newsletter page, and that will not look as aesthetically pleasing as having it fill it up. If it's a portrait type of image, it leaves a lot of white on the side and doesn't look great in the newsletter. And when we ask people for headshots, they tend to send those shapes, and they don't look great in the newsletter. So you're better with a landscape sort of image. And the best images I would recommend to use are of your chapter events and activities. So I know that we haven't had much in person in the past. And I'll just, I take screenshots oftentimes of the meetings that we're having, and that becomes a JPEG image. And I'll use that. Saying the CARP chapter had a meeting and we discussed proliferation of nuclear weapons, and I'll take a screenshot and we'll see the 20 or 30 heads that were on one screen. And that's a good way to give an indication of real people being at the meeting. And I think rather than stock shots or pictures of landscapes, having images of our members is the best way to go. Okay, Myrene, I see your hand up.
I was going to say Wendy had a question too.
Okay. A couple of things. You had indicated if we wanted to put in a PDF file, we should load it from CARP. Can't load it from our own desktop?
A PDF to be shared online has to be residing somewhere that a link can be sent to it. So unless you have, a web page that is already hosting that PDF, then it can't come from your desktop. It has to be on the internet somewhere so that the newsletter can connect to it and show it in your newsletter.
That makes sense. I haven't put one together, but
Yeah.
that does.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed, and it required me to do some hunting to find out how to fix it, was that when I get a newsletter in my inbox, the font is very small and uncomfortable to read. Now I figured out how to do that, to enlarge it on my own computer. Is there a reason it's set? I'm assuming that is a default setting. Is there a reason it's set at that size?
Yes, it's a default setting, and it's set with the understanding that the entire digital world is scalable. So as you've discovered that some fonts might be too small for your screen or your viewer, people can choose the size that they want to read in based on their needs or the size of their screen. It is set to the traditional default and to maximize the aesthetic look of the first newsletter. So if you opened up a newsletter and all you saw were the first 40 words without being able to see the headlines and all the other things that are contained in the newsletter, it wouldn't be practical. So it's set to a default that is aesthetically pleasing. Most people can read it, and those who have difficulty can scroll it, can scale it up. Maureen, is that it for your couple of questions? Okay, Wendy, sorry.
Yes, to insert the Zoom link, is that through the insert and link button?
Yes,
to
so
ensure that it's live?
let's do that right now. So I will share my screen again. Go back to the newsletter, share. So I go to the edit for our second story. That opens up the editor on the left. And I will scroll down to the bottom of my text. And I will add, click here to join our Zoom link on Monday. And then I will, let's see, I'll go to my sent emails and just add the link for our meeting that we have right now. Here's a Zoom link. I'll copy that back to our newsletter. I will paste that here, Control P, paste that back there. Oh, that's that. I went to print there by accident. Excuse me. Cancel. Control V. And there's the link to this meeting that we're in now. I highlight that, insert the link, put the link there, insert. So now that link is live. I save the changes. Click here to join our Zoom link on Monday. And when I click it, it's going to open up Zoom and take us to that meeting.
Excellent.
Wendy, did that answer your question all right?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. That was one of the challenges, was getting it live as opposed to just pasting it in. So thank
Yes.
you.
And you could also include in that the numbers as well for people who might want to join on the phone, depending on the information for, if you've seen the full Zoom invitation, it has the link, and then it has the to dial by phone, to touch dial by mobile, those types of things. So some people may want to join on the phone only. Oftentimes with their mobile phone, if they're out, they just press join with one tap mobile, and they're listening and they're participating, but they can't be seen. So that's the editor. I'll continue on then. And we'll get to those lists, Doreen. So I have looked at my newsletter. I've previewed it. I'm happy with what I see. I've got my titles. I've got my images. I've got my text. I've proofread it. I'm pretty happy. So I save it and I go to the next step, following those green arrows. I have gone back to the overall overview of this newsletter, this campaign, and I can prepare to send it. So let's look at the preview and test. So I preview it, and I'm going to send a test email, and I recommend this in every occasion, because I tend to find an error if I don't, or I find an error when I do send a test. So I send a test email, and this creates an internal email from Campaign Monitor to any recipients you wish. And you can type in email addresses here to send the test. And you can, so I will just send a test to sk@carp.ca. Tab. And this will now send a test version of that newsletter, a preview of that newsletter to the inbox. And then upon receiving it, you can see what the subject line looks like. You can see what the design, the shape looks like of the newsletter. And once you're happy with that, then you can go to prepare to send. And this is what I'm talking about with getting closer to the pay option. You can send it immediately, or you can schedule for a later time. I tend to be working on deadlines for the newsletter, so I'm finishing it and sending it, but the chapter may on many occasions have the ability to schedule it for a later time. So I'll hit schedule this one for later, and we'll schedule this newsletter for Saturday at 9 a.m. And we'll make it in the time zone in which you reside. And it's a lot of time zones here. Is that central? What are we talking about for you guys?
Just Saskatchewan,
Oh, you have your own time zone?
we do.
All right, so let's see if it's here.
There it is. Up a little bit more.
Up a little more. There it is, Saskatchewan time. All right. So on Saturday, February 5th at 9 a.m. Saskatchewan time, this newsletter will go out. Continue, again, following the green boxes. And I want to send it on Saturday at 9 a.m.
We want to take Kathy out of there.
Okay, so this is a default, but this would be a person who gets notified after the newsletter is sent. So the sk@carp.ca will get that. And there's a comma there. So, and now we'll continue to payment. And we have a default credit card here that is CARP credit card. And the costs that the national office pays for your newsletters is $5 plus 1 penny for each email address. So $2,649 in this case, for a total of $31.49 US. Campaign Monitor is an Australian-based company, but they charge for their services in US dollars. So that if I was all ready and sent and ready, happy to send it, I'm comfortable with everything. This is the last button here. Hit the green button. If you were sending it immediately, it would say send this campaign immediately. This one says schedule this campaign. And if I hit the green button here, it becomes scheduled and they take the payment. If it was sent immediately, it would start the process of sending it out and take the payment. So I'm going to go back so as not to send out that newsletter to anyone and so as not to incur a $31 US charge. Back to campaigns. So Doreen, this is where we're talking about lists. In the overview of the client called CARP Regina chapter, we see that there's overview, current campaigns, there's automation for those who are automatically sending out recurring newsletters. There's transactional for companies that are doing transactions commerce on their website, and then lists and subscribers. So this is an important part for the chapter. Here are the two lists that currently exist. We're working diligently with our IT team to figure out how to continue to update this automatically. It has not worked for some time, but we're hoping it will. But in the interim, this is where the lists are created. And creating a list involves clicking the green button. I'll go back just to do it again. Click the green button, give it a name, follow the green button, continue to import. And this is where you can import a list of email addresses, or you can add them. I could drag and drop, I could upload, or I could just enter them manually.
So Anthony, is this where we would put in those groups that we want to send our newsletter to? Like, for example, Saskatchewan Seniors Mechanism, if we want to share that with them all the time, would we add them and make this list so that they're included each time?
That's right.
Okay.
So I've added my name followed by a comma, the comma. To upload or manually enter subscribers, you can include subscriber data, help send more personalized emails. When uploading a file, each column we treat as a separate field. So I will do this. I'll put it in a different column. There we go. Go to the next. And now it's uploading those two new emails to that list. And in this test list, we have I was a current subscriber. It didn't
Maybe
seem
because the other one isn't available.
it didn't take it. So I will add sk@carb.ca. Next, uploaded the subscriber. And now I'm hoping to see two. There we go. So there's two email addresses on this list called test. And go ahead.
Just a quick question. We could also create a list for all of the CARP groups that we want to send a copy of our newsletter to, could we not?
Yes, you could. And that's, I think, what Kathleen was referring to as well.
Oh, I thought she was talking about mainly other groups that weren't CARP related, but we could also create one for just like the CARP groups that we want to send to.
Yeah. So for example, let's go back.
It doesn't limit us when we add different emails, like you had the Saskatchewan group and you had another email, right? You could have 4 groups that you're sending it to, correct?
Right.
Okay, all right.
So here's a new list, political leaders. I continue to import. I could add all of the MLAs in the province, MLAs, and I'll just add my name as, let's say I'm one of your political leaders. Next. And now in my lists, I have the two that existed before, the Saskatchewan list and the master office list. I have my political leaders list and a test list. So I could send the newsletter to all or just one. So maybe this newsletter was intended just for political leaders.
Okay.
All right. And if I wanted to edit this list, I can add and subtract by following the green.
We could also have a list for all news media ones that where we have, if we have a specific thing that we want to hit all the news medias.
Correct.
Various different groups.
Intended to have as many lists as possible detailed. And this is again where you could add those CARP members interested in the golf tournament. There might be 600 people in your newsletter that clicked on that, create a sub list, or people who are interested in advocacy, or people who responded to your campaign on a seniors advocate. You could have a seniors advocate list. So that type
Yeah.
of detail
What
you can add
happen-
here.
Yeah, what happens if they are on, like you mentioned, the individuals that are interested in golf? What if they are on the master list and now in this other list? Will they get 2 emails?
No, they won't get 2, and that's as described in the initial newsletter draft I created. I selected both the head office and the SASC list, which had over 3,000
Yeah.
different, or 3,300
Oh.
different names, but only
Yeah.
2,600 would be sent because there was overlap in the 2.
Oh, excellent. So it doesn't duplicate. That was
Yeah,
one of my concerns.
right.
Okay,
It
thank you.
doesn't duplicate.
Thank you.
And someone calls you and says, I don't want to get your newsletters, the opportunity is either to request that they hit unsubscribe at the bottom of their newsletter, and that way they automatically get taken out. But if they're insistent that you're responsible for that, you can, I'll go to this political leaders list,
Yeah.
and I search for the subscriber as Anthony at carp.ca. It finds me, here I am. And then if I click on my name, I can edit, change my email address, remove me from the list. I can do that. And on these 3 dots here, I can move to unsubscribed, or I can delete it completely.
All right, one other quick question. Oh, geez. There goes my Alzheimer's again. Never mind. It left me. It was a
Okay.
good question, but it
I
left
bet
me.
it was, yeah. It's a great one.
I have a
Anthony,
question.
the temptation would be to personalize when we're sending out newsletters. However, when I see the cost attached to that, for example, with political leaders, you could custom tailor the headline, which would be different than sending it to another group. But you're running up a cost each time you send out a campaign, correct?
I'm not certain that the personalization costs extra. I'll have to check, because we don't personalize them, because the data that you have in these lists contains just the email address. It doesn't have their full data. So you have a list of all of the Joe Smiths at carp.ca's, but not necessarily their name connected to it.
So you have an event, we have an event coming up, and we want to communicate an angle of specific interest in that event to political leaders. That's one send. We want to send to the seniors mechanism with another particular angle, and so forth. Does that incur a cost each time?
Yes, well, you'll be paying for individual newsletters to go to those groups. If you're highlighting the email to, well, let's say you had 10 stakeholder groups like the seniors mechanism and others in Saskatchewan that you wanted to send a newsletter to. And the first story was calling on Saskatchewan's seniors groups to join our cause. That's specific to that group, perhaps. But we don't have the list of members of the mechanism. So we might ask them to send the link of the entire newsletter to their members. Or we could write a newsletter specifically for politicians, and that list would be specific for them. But generally, the chapter creates a newsletter, and you decide which lists to which lists it applies. And you might copy the politicians on everyone so that they get it, even if it's not directed to them. They want to know what's going on with your chapter. So you click politicians. But if you're having a secret meeting that politicians shouldn't know about, you take them off of that list. Doreen, hands up.
Okay, I'm following what Wendy is asking is, if we tailor a message of a newsletter to an individual group, politicians, and then we tailor it to seniors groups, the additional cost to doing separate newsletters with just a little bit of tailoring, is it just the extra $5 because you're paying a penny per subscriber? Is it just an extra $5 you're incurring for a tailored newsletter if you're sending out 3 instead of 1?
Yeah, that's right. So sending a newsletter to your entire list costs $30. If you're sending it to different lists, it's 30 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus the pennies for the individual. So you could, double your costs by sending that newsletter to 5 groups rather than in one newsletter. And that gets expensive. We're spending $30,000 US a year on newsletters. We don't want them to be sort of focused to groups of 3 and 4. It's not an effective way to send newsletters. It's not cost effective anyways. But in cases where you think it's prudent, you're welcome to. But it's not the best regular means of sending newsletters. We don't want you to be doubling your costs from 30 to 60 every time you have a newsletter.
But I understood that the cost of the newsletter is a standard $5 for sending the newsletter, plus a penny for every subscriber every email that you're sending it to. If you're just sending it to the politicians, would it be just $5 and the 20 politicians you're sending it to, or the 100 politicians, so an extra $1 would, and then convert at American?
That's right.
So it would be just like $10 or something?
Yeah, well, it would be $5 plus 5 cents if it's going to 5 politicians. But if you're already sent that newsletter to your general membership list, which costs you $30 something, and then you send it to 5 politicians, which is $5, and then you send it to 5 community groups, which is $5, and then you send it to 5 church groups, which is $5, then you've doubled your cost.
Yes. Okay.
And that's what I wanted to avoid.
Okay.
Okay, Doreen, is it still on your mind?
Yes, I finally figured out. And I just might have missed what you said, but when we get new members, okay, we don't necessarily know what their emails are. So are you saying that National goes in and they update that list?
That was the intention. It's not the current practice. It was a previous practice. They made a code which would take the monthly lists that we generate for the chapters, take out the email addresses, and then update what we call the master list. We'll go back to lists.
Yeah.
So this Saskatchewan list with the full amount, that in future practice will be updated automatically with all of your new members.
Yeah. So how do we now update it?
Right now, we sent a membership list to the chapter last week that had all of the email addresses that we have for the province. You would go into this, add new subscribers, copy and paste all of those email addresses into here, and then add them.
Okay.
And it would again dedupe for any duplicates, and you would hopefully be adding a number of new email addresses every week or every month.
Yeah, okay, good. What about if somebody was in there before and they unsubscribed now? So they're not going to be in your new list, but they're still going to be in our old list, and we're going to continue to have them in the old list because it wouldn't have duplicated it. Or
So-
does it completely remove everybody that's in that list and re-add just the ones that are on when you do that, when you
Yes.
update?
It's good at removing those. So you'll see on your list, there are already 355 people who have unsubscribed, and it won't resend it to them. So even if you keep uploading the list with the same email addresses, that
There,
that
okay.
person remains unsubscribed. So here's
Yeah.
Rosalie Daisley on
Yeah.
January 18th. She unsubscribed.
Yeah.
And if I click on here, I can move her back to active if she called us and said, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to hit that button. But
Yeah.
so Rosalie, even if you re-added her email address, she
Mhm.
would still be marked as unsubscribed unless you manually changed her.
Okay, marvelous. That answered my questions.
It leads me to another question, Anthony, in terms of unsubscribed emails.
Yes.
If they're still active members, is there anything that prevents us from sending them a reminder that they're unsubscribed and an offer to resubscribe?
Generally, once they've unsubscribed, to continue to communicate with them is in contravention of the Castle anti-spam legislation. So every newsletter is required to have that unsubscribe button at the bottom. And if they unsubscribe, we are obliged to no longer send them emails. When we go through the renewal process, if they renew with us and share their email address again, they go back into the subscribed zone. But the unsubscribed folks, we're obliged to follow their wishes. And the customer service center often gets calls saying, I used to get newsletters, but I don't anymore. And it's often a matter of them hitting unsubscribed, either for one newsletter that they didn't like, and then they didn't realize it was going to unsubscribe them from the proceeding ones. So that's something that we're stuck with, and unfortunately, that 355 we're living with them right now is not being on our lists. Once in a blue moon, when something is very important and a chapter says we have to get the word out, we will re-add the entire unsubscribed list as a sort of a message from headquarters rather than a continuing series of a chapter newsletter. And we can get around the Castle compliance for that purpose because it's information that we're using as part of our ongoing business relationship with them. But if they've unsubscribed from general newsletters, we're asking that you adhere to that.
But we could
That-
actually put it to our Facebook to say, if anybody is not receiving our newsletters, please get in touch with us and we can, and
Yeah.
we could actually reach them through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and saying, if you've not receiving our, and wish to get in touch with us.
Yes, indeed. That's
And we
a
could
good,
take a look. Yeah, we could take a look and see if they accidentally got on the unsubscribed list and then re-enter them.
correct. And you could also encourage people who aren't even CARP members yet to send your email to sk@carp.ca, get on our newsletters, find out more about what we're doing, and hopefully you'll want to become a member. That's another, and they could be just added to your list. You could create a new list called Yet to Be Members, and you can include them in your newsletters as well.
Okay, Anthony, do I understand that National is not regularly updating these lists that we're going to get when we click on use the template for Saskatchewan? And those are not going to be updated, and that we need to, on a weekly basis, go in there and add any of the new subscribers to a new list?
Monthly, you'd be required to do that, and I can show you as simple as that is right now.
But I'm just wondering, is that something that we need to do? Like, I understand, I know the list you're talking about that we get. And so I'm wondering, is that something that we have to now control? That National isn't automatically updating these lists?
Correct. The program that was written that was doing that is no longer working. So right now the chapters are required to upload new email addresses to their newsletters. And let me just show you. So I sent a list to sk@carp.ca a couple of days ago. Here's a membership update. I'm going to open this. CARP chapter active. Open this. I'll have to download this first, excuse me. I download, and this way you'll see me do it, and it's updated as of the most recent list. So here's the Saskatchewan active list. And here are all the email addresses that we have. I'm copying this, Control C. I'm going to go back to your lists and subscribers. We're calling this one the Saskatchewan list, and update before send. So someone has left that message there. I'm going to add new subscribers. I'm pasting that entire list I just copied. I'll hit next.
Hmm.
And now that list that had 2,400 now has 2,690. All right, and then if I go, was that correct? Did that work? Was there 2,400 before?
Yes, there were.
Yeah, all right.
I
So
was
now
watching.
if I go back to the list, I'm going to actually rename this list here. And I'm going to say updated Feb 1. So now I know that this Saskatchewan list was updated on February 1st, 2022, and it has 2,690.
Anthony, are
Yeah.
there plans in the work to make it automatic?
Well, it's been down for some time, and also, as I may have mentioned in a previous meeting, I'm not sure if anyone here was on it, when Darwin was sold to Pacific Palm Coast Data, a number of employees at Zoomer Media left with that acquisition or that divestment, and the person who had built that program left with that program. So it wasn't working. He was having trouble getting it working. He's no longer here. And the new folks at Zoomer Media have it on their list, but whether they're able to do it or not is to be determined. So in the meantime, that 15 seconds that it just took me to add it, we're going to ask the chapters to do that in the interim.
I like the fact that you changed the name to tell exactly when it was updated. That I think that's a really good practice to keep.
Yeah, and the list was created on March 19th, so you know that it's been that's when it was started, and now it's grown to its current iteration as of February 1st.
No, I think it's a good practice to keep in place.
So there's an hour and a half of Campaign Monitor 101. I'm going to ask Janine to collect the email addresses of anyone who will be an editor in Campaign Monitor. And from there, I will send you the coordinates to become an editor via Campaign Monitor. So I go into your account as the administrator, and I can add different names and emails to be editors. And you'll receive an email directly from Campaign Monitor requiring you to create a password. And from there on in, you can go ahead and work with it, play with it, and start to become campaign monitor editors. And Janine herself now has had the lesson and can do the same thing.
Excellent. Yeah, I know that Wendy and I at one point in time, we had credentials to get into it, and but we just never got the knack of using it, and so never did put out any. So we'll redo that for Wendy and I, and then Myrene and Doreen will send out get them on, so that if they have an interest in working with this program, then we've got that as well.
I think it's important if we have 3 or 4 of us for sure, from the group. And now that you have this recorded, it also gives someplace for us to go back and take a look at it.
Yeah, more hands will definitely make the work lighter. And again, watching the recording, it may help you, but I really do recommend getting in there and just clicking those green buttons and trying it out. You won't, like I said, you won't break it as long as you don't hit pay.
Okay, so our
Wendy,
first
you're on mute there, Wendy. Sorry, I think you were trying to talk.
our next newsletter will be going out fairly shortly, so we'll have to get those credentials very quickly here. The other thing I was going to ask is there a limit to how many different sponsors that we put on a newsletter?
No, the ask has been that the chapter include one of the affinity sponsors in the header, and then there's the opportunity for some of the smaller ones at the bottom. I didn't go through that with you right now. I think that's sort of step 2. So work on getting your newsletter content together, and we can talk about the advertising portion in the future.
I think the new credentials will be really helpful. I realized that part of my problem was I was using, what you showed us today is not what I saw back when I tried to use it in the fall. And so my credentials of 5 or whatever years ago must have led me to part of the site, but not all of the site.
Well, let me just look right now. I'm going to go back. I'll share again.
I saw a whole different set of screens. Some of it looked familiar, but some of it was definitely not what I was viewing.
So Kathleen has access. There's another, so that's Kathleen Spat at Gmail. And then there's Regina at carp.ca has access. Those are your 2 logins. Wendy, I saw one at zastel.net. Is that correct still?
Yeah.
You should change the
Yeah,
Well, I can't change
Regina
I can't
at-
change the email
yeah.
because that's the authentication, but I have to add another person. So I'm
Okay.
going to remove all of you. You're all gone,
yeah.
and I'll start again.
Anthony, will you also do us a favor and reset the template that we've got for Carp Saskatchewan to use if that one wasn't working when you first started, and it the edit options weren't popping up, to remove that and set it and send us a new one?
Well, I won't send it to you. It'll be in the system.
It'll be in the thing.
Yes, yes.
That would be helpful because I mean, that one template is what we would typically start from, right, Kathleen?
Yeah, and I think it might even be wisest to delete the other ones just to avoid any confusion and start fresh, because the program has changed, and so those templates might be on the old program as well.
Yeah. But if we have one good one to work from initially, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop recording here. I'll stop sharing. Stop recording. Oops, I don't want that.
Do we send Jane, who do we send our information to be able to
Yeah, to Janine, please, and with the email address that you will be logging in with.
okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here now